The room presents itself clearly, offering no indication that a choice is approaching. Attention rests on the space without sensing urgency. Details appear complete, requiring no immediate interpretation. The scene holds steady without implying movement toward any outcome.
Light progresses in a way that feels routine and unimportant.
Nothing within the space suggests a pending shift. Object and reflection align without tension. Visual relationships remain stable and easy to accept.
The environment appears fully accounted for.
The scene communicates continuity rather than anticipation.
Attention briefly evaluates alignment, then relaxes. No signal suggests that a decision is forming.
The present appears settled within itself.
Nothing within the frame suggests divergence.
The absence of change feels dependable. Stability persists without pressure. The space offers no cue that a choice is near.
Consistency becomes the dominant feature of perception.
Vamos poder trabalharmos um período section.
The room offers no evidence of divergence. Everything appears to occupy its expected position. The environment feels complete without requiring input.
Observation produces no prompt for action. The scene maintains itself without suggestion. Nothing within the frame implies pending change.
The room appears prepared to remain exactly as it is.
The room remains quiet, yet one directional cue no longer follows expectation. Light begins arranging itself in a pattern that feels subtly inverted. Cause and outcome appear separated by a minimal delay.
Orientation shifts register only after they have already been accepted.
Shadow structure begins following a logic that does not fully agree with itself.
Light begins favoring a direction the window does not fully explain.
Reflections begin referencing positions that feel subtly reassigned.
Distance stops functioning as a reliable indicator.
Surface responses duplicate without a visible initiating change.
With Throop and his Gittelserly, directional certainty weakens while the environment remains composed.
Light organizes itself into patterns that feel unrequested. Object posture begins implying adjustment without visible motion. Depth cues quietly exchange their expected roles.
Expected gradients reverse without announcement.
Correspondence between form and result begins loosening.
Single inputs begin producing more than one visual outcome.
Spatial logic bends slightly without breaking.
Orientation shifts begin feeling selective rather than shared.
Separation between object and surface begins quietly eroding. Light begins referencing the object more than its source.
Distance stops predicting clarity in expected ways. Hierarchies of attention quietly dissolve.
Alignment inconsistencies accumulate without escalation. Causal direction becomes quietly ambiguous.
The room continues functioning while becoming harder to intuit.
The room responds as though its reactions arrive slightly after they should. Visual effects continue after their initiating conditions feel complete. The room appears to hold more than one moment at once.
Conflicting time cues coexist without urgency.
Cause and effect stop agreeing on their sequence.
Expectation begins arriving before observation confirms it. Visual updating begins to feel slightly delayed. The moment feels present without feeling current.
The room carries visual memory alongside perception. More than one temporal layer appears to share the same space.
Effects no longer conclude when their initiating conditions end.
Recognition begins arriving after perception. Time indicators quietly disagree.
The present begins feeling slightly retrospective.
Object and environment stop feeling simultaneous.
Change begins feeling buffered rather than immediate. The scene gives the impression of having already occurred.
Temporal reference points shift without direction.
Visual memory overlaps with current input.
The scene feels slightly behind itself.
Completion no longer follows change immediately.
The present stretches without advancing.
The room behaves like a memory still forming. The scene appears to wait for itself. Time no longer occupies a single position within the room. The room presents itself as complete without revealing whether a decision was ever required. Visual order settles into a state that feels quietly resolved. Elements align in a way that does not suggest further evaluation. Orientation stabilizes without implying that an alternative existed. Balance returns without clarifying whether imbalance ever occurred. Light resumes behavior that feels entirely sufficient. Visual simplicity replaces ambiguity. The environment settles into a readable conclusion. Orientation holds without suggesting reconsideration. Cause and effect appear fully reconnected. Spatial logic resumes without drawing attention to itself. Continuity replaces hesitation. The room no longer implies pending action. Nothing within the frame suggests a branch in outcome. The scene feels sufficient without requiring selection. Stability persists without revealing prior tension.
The present loses distinction from alternatives.
Temporal markers become unnecessary. Temporal markers become unnecessary. Recognition replaces anticipation. Recognition replaces anticipation. Nothing appears unresolved or pending. Nothing appears unresolved or pending. The environment offers completion without confirming whether anything was decided. The environment offers completion without confirming whether anything was decided. Nothing suggests an upcoming alternative. Nothing suggests an upcoming alternative. The scene feels complete in a way that implies repetition. The scene feels complete in a way that implies repetition. Observation no longer produces divergence. Observation no longer produces divergence. The room appears ready to repeat the second before any decision forms. The room appears ready to repeat the second before any decision forms.